So I am finally back home after what was an absolutely insane week last week in LA. I did vlog the entire event too, and I'm actually sort of in the process of editing that. So if you guys are interested in seeing some behind the scenes from the event as well, then keep your eyes peeled for the next video on the channel. But for today, now that I'm a few days removed from the event and have had the time to sort of really think everything over and fully form an opinion, I wanted to dive a bit deeper into the good, the bad, and the ugly from my hands-on time with the game, leading into the beta only a few days from now, where you guys will also be able to play it for yourselves. If you guys are interested in plenty more Battlefield 6 content in the lead up to launch, be sure to hit that subscribe button. There is so much more content on the way. But with that being said, let's get stuck right into it. Now, once again, I have to apologize for the terrible quality of the footage that I captured over there in LA. As you can see from this footage, this was from the first day that we got there, and it's all crisp and clean, and for some reason they seem to have reset all of my settings. And so again, apologies for the quality of the footage. Once the beta is out this weekend, obviously I'll be capturing a whole round of new footage. So moving forward, luckily you don't have to put up with this freaking potato quality footage, but unfortunately for today, that is the only gameplay that I have. Now I'm essentially going to split this video into the pros and the cons, the things that I thought were really well done, the things that really excite me, and then I'm also going to talk about some cons, or mostly concerns. There wasn't really anything that I consider a con just yet because we haven't played enough, but there are a few areas for sure that I have a few concerns in. And so we're going to start off with the pros, just to talk about all the stuff that really did excite me. Now, first and foremost, the thing that I think was the most impressive was the sound design of this game and the overall immersion. This includes like the graphics and the destruction and all of that stuff. I think this could potentially end up being one of the most immersive Battlefield games that we've ever received. And I'm putting that in the category of Battlefield 1, for example, which I will say I do not say that lightly. To me, that game is probably the most immersive, atmospheric shooter that I've ever played in my life. And I genuinely do believe this could end up on that level. Now, we obviously need to see how it launches and how all of the maps play and all of those sorts of things. But just from the playtime that I have had, it feels like it could definitely end up being that type of game where in 10 years we look back at Battlefield 6 and go, damn, that was one of the most immersive shooters I've ever played. The sound design specifically was really, really good. It sounded like you were genuinely in a battle. Every time you hear a jet go past, it is like the main focus. You can just hear it, and it is like almost a chilling thing to hear because you know that that thing is probably going to get some kills at some point. You can also hear tanks getting blown up in the distance. You can hear gunshots in the distance and everything. And obviously that has been a staple of realistically every Battlefield, and honestly every shooter has those things that I mentioned, but they're just done to such a high quality in this game that I think it is, like I said, on that level of Battlefield 1, or at least as of right now, it feels like that could potentially happen anyway. Something else that I thought was really, really well done, and it could be, to me, probably the best that it has been done in the entire franchise, is the gunplay. It kind of just feels like an updated version of Battlefield 4. It feels like Battlefield 3 and 4, but in a modern setting where it's obviously upgraded. The games these days compared to 10 to 15 years ago should be better. They should be of a higher quality, and that is essentially how it feels. It does just feel reminiscent of those older games, but done to a higher quality, which I think is something that we all expect, though obviously in Battlefield 5 and 2042 that wasn't really the case. Now, I do think the gunplay in Battlefield 5 was fine. I also think the 2042 gunplay ended in a decent spot, but it wasn't really Battlefield feeling. That game to me just feels like a bit of a blur, where it's like not a Battlefield game. It's a semi-decent shooter, but it just doesn't feel like Battlefield. And so to me, the gunplay in this game definitely feels more in line with those older games. Now, if you guys didn't hear me say this in my previous impressions video, I am now allowed to say that I've actually also played Battlefield 6 all the way back in Feb, so this wasn't my first time playing. And I remember saying back then at the Melbourne office that this game almost feels like if Battlefield 3 and Modern Warfare 2019 had a baby. Now, when I say that, I'm exclusively talking about the feeling of the game and the gunplay, not the actual game overall, because just to be clear, I don't really like Modern Warfare 2019 or really any of the modern Call of Duty games, but I'd be lying if I said that the gunplay and the feeling of Modern Warfare 2019 wasn't phenomenal. I think it was probably some of the best gunplay we've ever seen, and Battlefield 6 really does feel a little bit reminiscent to that, where it's a bit more realistic and like grounded feeling obviously the gunplay still isn't realistic because it's Battlefield. This isn't like Armor or Squad where it's like one shot and you die and stuff like that. Like, it's not realistic in that sense, but it feels realistic. The weapons feel beefy. It feels like when you shoot a weapon, you can actually feel yourself shooting it, if that makes sense. So to me, that is huge praise to pretty much compare this to Battlefield 3 and Modern Warfare 2019. And it really does feel in a lot of ways like those two games just had a baby, and that is Battlefield 6. Now, something else that I think was phenomenal in the time that I had with the game is the destruction. I think it is genuinely the best that it has ever been, topping Bad Company 2, which, keep in mind, that is like my baby, that game. That is the game that I fell in love with this franchise. And generally, I am very hesitant to say that like the newer games do anything better than those old ones, because to me, there's just so much nostalgia there. But I really do think that the destruction in this game is most likely going to be better than Bad Company 2 or Battlefield 3 or 4. It really does feel like it's going to end up the best that we've seen in the franchise and even really in the industry. I think that the finals honestly did top Battlefield. I think the destruction in the finals is absolutely phenomenal, and we all know that the finals is made by a lot of developers who came from Battlefield. But I also will say I think that the destruction in Battlefield 6 may potentially top the finals, or at the very least it is very close to it. I haven't played the finals in a good probably year now, so maybe that is just recency bias, but it feels like it is definitely on that level where the destruction was just absolutely insane. The amount of times that I saw things getting blown up and just honestly stood there and watched and was like, what the hell? It was absolutely crazy, and that's coming from someone who has probably got well over 10,000 hours in Battlefield. So it's not like I've never seen destruction before, but it was just done so well that it is kind of mind-blowing at times. And obviously after 2042, where the destruction was very lackluster, I think a lot of people are going to be very much blown away by the destruction in Battlefield 6. Now, the final pro that I wanted to talk about is to do with the level design, because to me personally, this is arguably the most important and crucial element of making a first-person shooter. I think you can make the best game of all time, but if the maps are shit, the game will be shit. I've said that so many times. And speaking again about Modern Warfare 2019, that was really the issue for me with that game. The level design was genuinely atrocious. And despite looking great and feeling great and the gunplay was awesome and everything, I still consider that game to suck because the maps were so bad that I did not want to play multiplayer. So to me, level design is the most crucial element. That is why, for example, I think 2042 wasn't good, because the level design was so poor that it just didn't make the map's fun to play on, and playing on a map is essentially all you do. If the gunplay sucks, for example, you can play in a tank and still have fun. If the vehicles suck, you can play as a medic and run around healing people. There are other ways to play the game, but there's not really other ways to play the maps. You just are on the map every time. You can't like play in a different area, if that makes sense. And so if the areas you're playing in suck, then in my opinion, the game also sucks. To me, that is not an issue in Battlefield 6, at least from the maps that I've played on. Now, keep in mind, we only played, I think, about 4 maps, so I don't know what the other ones are going to be like. We know that Operation Firestorm is also coming, and we know that that map is phenomenal, so that's another one that I can confirm will be good. Maybe the rest of the maps suck, I have no idea, but the maps that I did play on, they feel like proper Battlefield maps. Again, they were nice and close quarters, but there are still long lines of sight. There are still areas for vehicles and stuff like that. And there was a really good mix of, close quarters areas, long ranges for like snipers, and those mid ranges for assault rifles and stuff. It felt like a very good mix. And so to me, that was one of the most pleasing parts, to make sure that the maps were actually good, because like I said, all of this other stuff that I've mentioned, if it was all exactly the same, but the map sucked, I would genuinely think this game isn't going to be good. So that's how crucial I think the level design is, and it feels like they have very much done a very good job with that level design. I also think the level design in combination with the destruction was also really good, and I think that is a very crucial element, because you can have really good maps, for example, but then once they're blown up and half the buildings are all destroyed and stuff, sometimes those maps then become a little bit shit. Prime example, Siege of Shanghai. That was an awesome map, and then once that main tower got blown up, that map was genuinely arse, in my opinion. And so that's obviously a bit different, because that was full-on Levolution. This is just more regular destruction. But one thing I noticed was that they seem to have picked the right buildings that can be blown up and stuff. So you can still blow up buildings, you can change the map quite a bit, but the general layout once everything is blown up is still really good, to where you're not just playing on like a leveled playing field with no cover and stuff like that. There's still plenty of cover, there's still a good map flow, and that's a pretty hard thing to achieve, so I think they should be very happy with how they've done that, at least again on the maps that I played anyway. Now, getting into some of the concerns or the cons, and I'll quickly just get through these because these are more like speculation. These are things that I can't really confirm right now. They're more just things that I think could be an issue, but until we play not only the beta, but even the full launch, I don't think we can really talk about too much. But they're just some areas that I have a few little concerns about. Now, first and foremost, the TTK, or the time to kill, was a little bit hard to gauge because sometimes I felt like I was killing and or dying very quickly. There were other times I was killing people, but it felt like it took a while. That can most likely come down to weapon balancing, but also keep in mind, every single match was literally like the sweatiest lobby you'll ever see for Battlefield because there was like 300 creators there, all of which are very good. Some of the people there were genuine like Call of Duty professionals. For example, Shotzi was there. He literally just won a CDL championship. So this guy is like the best of the best in the world at shooters, for example. And it wasn't just him. There was like Scump and Crim6 and all of those guys. A lot of the top Warzone guys were there and stuff. So it's hard to gauge with the TTK because it could just be because everyone was so freaking good that they're not missing shots. Whereas maybe when I play the beta and there's a lot more casuals in there, maybe it will feel fine. I'm not too sure. But at times it did feel a little bit too quick. And that's just something I think we're going to have to gauge once there's actual like regular lobbies rather than essentially the sweatiest lobbies that we'll ever be in. That being said, I don't think it was just the sweaty lobbies because I was also killing people really quickly and I was handling myself fairly well. I was actually at the top of a lot of different leaderboards, or at least like near the top anyway. And so it's not like I was just getting shit on and therefore I think the time to kill was too quick. Even being on the good side of it, I still felt like it might have been a little bit quick as well. Now, a lot of that also comes down to weapon balancing. I think that is something I'm definitely concerned about, but again, weapon balancing is always going to be a thing. And it didn't feel like completely broken. It just felt like there were certainly a few guns that were the best in the game. So hopefully maybe when there's more weapons added and stuff and they do some balancing, then it will just be completely fine. But that's something they're going to need to obviously stay on top of. From what I could tell too, the vehicle balancing was a little bit sort of hit and miss. From what I've heard of the aerial vehicles, I was talking to Silk. I'm sure a lot of you guys know Silk. He's a fellow Aussie. And I was talking to him at the event because he was there too. He said that the air vehicles were like absolutely dominant against air vehicles, not so much against infantry, but he said it was like 4 bullets to kill or something in a jet on another jet, which is just insane. So I think the vehicle balancing also maybe needs a little bit of tuning. Again, that is just kind of to be expected, but that is an area that I think is always a concern in Battlefield because dominant vehicles can be very, very frustrating and it can kind of ruin the game a lot of the time too. Really, the only other concern that I have is to do with like the servers and the netcode and stuff like that, because obviously we were playing on LAN, so there was pretty much 0 ping. And it did feel good, but I'm curious to see how it plays on, for example, my Australian internet, which is not fantastic. I still only generally have about 20 to 30 ping, which is completely fine. But if the netcode sucks or if there's like server issues, that is an area where maybe the game felt really good on LAN, but once everyone gets their hands on it, maybe it won't feel good. The hit registration might be arse and stuff like that. So that is another area where I wouldn't say I'm concerned. I don't think it's going to be bad, but it's more just something I want to keep my eye on because that's really the only area where I think the gunplay could be let down if the hit registration and the netcode and stuff isn't great, which really we can't speculate on until it actually comes out in the beta, both this coming weekend and the weekend after as well. But that is essentially it for my, I guess, more refined thoughts now that I'm actually home. The video that I did, the first impressions one, that was like chaos. I was trying to just get that done while I was literally there at the event, and it's impossible to get so much work done in such a chaotic environment. So I thought I would do almost a follow-up now that I can actually like gather my thoughts on it. I'm keen to hear all of your thoughts as well, so be sure to leave a comment down below on how you feel about the game so far. And like I said, if you want to see some behind the scenes stuff from the actual event in LA, keep an eye out for the next video because hopefully that will be the vlog showing you guys some of those behind the scenes elements that you don't get to see on the live stream and stuff like that. But that is going to do it for this one, guys. Thank you all very much for watching. You guys have a great day and I'll see you all out there on the battlefield.